Everyone, I'm Kelvin, and you're watching First Light by Kelvin's Faith Unfiltered. We have a great show today because we have a very special guest. We have the co-creator of the Tennessee Fellowship for Christian Apologetics. And that also means we have one of the key people responsible for putting on the Worldviews Conference that Amber and I both went to in Nashville, Tennessee this past year. So let me welcome to the show, Aaron Yost. Thanks for being here, Aaron.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk to you. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited to have you. So I know a little bit about you, but our fans don't. So why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
Well, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Me and my friend started the Tennessee Fellowship for Christian Apologetics because we both had a heart for building up believers, right? That's what we think apologetics is. It's building the believer first so that you have the knowledge you need to give a reason for the hope that's within you. So we have kind of different facets of what we're doing. One of the main things is that we get together and we actually meet in real life, and that we actually make connections. Tim and I want to help raise people up in their local churches so that you don't have to go to YouTube to find an apologist. We want to make it so that we have local apologists within the church. So if people have a question, that they have someone that they can go to. I'm also working on some online things, like online resources that will allow people to seek answers out. And then obviously the Worldviews Conference was a big thing. That was the first real major conference we did. And so that's actually now a staple of something that we're doing yearly, and we're starting to plan next year. So you'll see that happening year in and year out. And then I have some personal projects that I'm working on as far as apologetics goes. And I've been a Christian my entire life. Like I was raised in the church. I got saved when I was in the second grade. So I've always been a Christian. Jesus saved me earlier, and I've always been active in the church. But I would say in the last 5 years, I fell in love with apologetics, and I just really see the value in it. And so it's touched my life so much that I want to share it with other people. So that's what brought us here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So you said you've been a Christian your whole life, but had recently kind of got into the apologetics world. Can you
Mm-hmm.
kind of give us a little bit of that story? I think you shared it with me at the conference a little bit, but why don't you, if you don't mind, why don't you share that story with us?
Yeah. So it was probably 10 years ago when I was living in Colorado. And I was just this, I think I represented what most Christians are, which is you're saved. There's no question that you're saved. And you're active in the church and you believe in Jesus and the Bible is true, but you also hold two beliefs in tension because you believe what the world tells you. You believe that the earth is old, and you believe that dinosaurs died out millions of years ago, and you believe that there's no, I want to say there's no evidence for God, but that God is like hidden, right? And you kind of accept all these secular presuppositions, and you hold these two things in tension, right? So when you're at the church, hey, the God created the earth 6,000 years ago, no problem. And when you leave the church, you go hang out with your friends, and when they bring up an ancient earth, or I would think about, I love museums and science and stuff. I go to the museum and I would just read about the earth, or the universe being billions of years old and the earth being billions of years old, and just nod my head and be like, yeah, that's really cool. And dude, honestly, I can remember the moment that the moment I accepted God's sovereignty and what that actually means for God to be sovereign. I was driving to work. I had to be at work at 5 in the morning. I was a CrossFit coach. I had to be at work at 5 in the morning. So it's probably 4:45. And I'm like sitting at light and I'm listening. And I remember like it came over me where I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like I finally understood. And the next thing that popped in my mind was that means God chose me for no reason. Like he saved me for nothing I did, but just because he has a plan. And that made me realize, like, if he didn't choose to save me, would be jammed up. And literally my car just started thanking God, like, oh my God, thank you for saving me. Like, I didn't know what else to say. So I'm like driving to work. I'm like thanking God, like, oh my gosh. And then it hit me, okay, I see how this leads to God getting the maximum glory. right? So that was like a huge theological step that I took. And it clicked like, oh, if this reformed theology leads to God getting maximum glory because it's nothing I did, it's his sovereignty that rules. And then I started to really see other people who shared the same theology, and they just spoke about the Bible as plain fact, right? So they didn't say things like, we believe XYZ. They would just be like, XYZ, right? And so I had this thought. I was like, if the Bible's true and God, the triune God of the Bible exists, then everything should point to him, right? Like that follows. And so I set out on a journey to see if that was true. And I started with science. Like I said, I'm a STEM-minded guy. So I started with science. It's funny because my first thing was I didn't want to hear it from a creationist. I wanted to hear it from a secular scientist that it makes sense that the earth is young. Guess what you're not going to find, Kelvin? You're not going to find an atheist secular scientist that tells you that. So begrudgingly, I turned to the creation scientists. And that's when I learned that they went to the same colleges, they do the same research, they have the same data, they are just as smart. They're looking at the world, the exact same world, and they're coming to a completely different conclusion. And that's when it hit me that the difference is the starting point.
Yeah, the presupposition. It's funny because,
Mm-hmm.
talking about that, I had a similar experience. So for me, Calvinism was one of the first things that really started um, changing my theology. And I would say that the reason for it was, and I know this could sound bad, but truly, Calvinists were the people that was around and read that were the most insightful on the Bible and offering the most information. A lot of, and I'm not saying that there aren't Arminian churches or other
Mm-hmm.
views that don't take the Bible seriously, but where the people that I were around that took the Bible the most serious were the Calvinists, and
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to speak from that perspective of having confidence, and they had confidence because they were in the Word, they were studying, they were talking about the Bible on days other than just Sunday,
Yeah.
and so I completely can relate to that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had always grown up as a young Earth 6 literal day creationist, so that one I didn't have as much of an experience on. But honestly, I started going back and studying that further for
Mm-hmm.
myself. And granted, I've become a little bit more respectful of alternative thoughts inside the church concerning Genesis. However, because I just had a good friend on who was talking about this, and but still, I still see it,
Mm-hmm.
as a young Earth,
Yeah.
and see it and understand it that way. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
go
I
ahead.
don't I don't make any bones about it. Like it's a theological position first. I think that you have real problems with consistently harmonizing the Bible with an old earth. I mean, the idea that God created man in his image in a perfect condition and that man fell and that plunged us all into sin and death came through that. And then the second Adam conquered death is key to Christian theology. Now, I'm not saying someone who believes in an old earth isn't a Christian. I'm saying harmonizing that is hard when you put death before man, like Dr. Lau said. The Bible says, through man came death. Man says, through death came man.
So you would say that? Do you feel that part of the apologetics group that you and Tim created, that that's one of the central points to it, or is it more on the existence of God or any other topics that you guys maybe hold as equally? Because I know at the War of the Worldviews conference that was a big part, but you also had Eli Ayala there, who Amber and I both just love that guy.
Isn't he
Um,
awesome?
yeah, so and also Dr. James White talking about more like textual criticism, and then other topics that are more about outside of the field of science. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So we're not like a young Earth creationist group. Me and Tim both are young Earth creationists. The reason that that was so front and center at the conference is because that conference um, contrasted Christianity and the secular worldview, and that's probably the number one place that Christians feel the press of secularism because secularists think they have a monopoly on science. They think that when they can say, give me evidence for God, and you don't immediately know what to say, that they've just pressed you into a corner. That's another thing. I hate that. When I listen to other Christians talk, when someone says to me, what name one thing, one evidence for God, you know what I say? Everything. Every single thing is evidence for God. So you pick one and I'll tell you how it's evidence for God. Right. And
Yeah.
so it bothers me that people give up that ground. That's what I was saying before, that you grant those secular presuppositions.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we're at an interesting point in history when it comes to how to have conversations. I'm pretty sure it was Van Til. It could have been Bonson that had written an article about the difference between evangelizing to the Jews in Jesus's time or in Paul's time and the Romans. It was a completely different thing. And we live in a culture today where it seems like anytime we talk about the Bible, we're not just having a conversation about the specific topic in the Bible. We've got to start all the way at the beginning to
Yeah.
defend God and the Bible. There's not
Mm-hmm.
a actual spiritual mindset of the people now. Now, I've talked to other people who say that that's kind of coming back around, that people are kind of sick
Mm-hmm.
of just the scientific world. Um, I'm not running into those people, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree that, you know, we live in a world where they start with a certain set of assumptions. And that is become sort of the ingrained starting point for us. And if I was to give an apologist any advice, it would be stop granting their presuppositions.
So going back to the conference though, how did you guys get the guests that you did? I mean, for being your first conference, you had some really heavy hitters, some great
Okay.
guys. And I
Yeah.
mean, obviously we can all just say that yes, God brought it together and we would all agree on that. But I know that had to take some hard work. So how did you
Yeah.
get them, and maybe tell us a little bit about the guests that you had?
Well, so this has been kicking around in my head for a couple of years, this conference. And these four people were the four most influential people to the way I think today. And it's been so impactful that I just wanted to share it with people. I thought, man, they need to hear these people talk. So I talked to Tim about putting on a conference, and it's really funny because this is just the difference between me and Tim. Tim was like, yeah, maybe why don't we put on like a smaller conference and kind of get our feet wet and figure it out? And I was like, nah, let's just do it. So I just reached out to everybody. Everyone has a website, everyone has a form you can fill out, everyone has a way to get a hold of them. And to each person, I sent an email saying, these are the other people that I invited. Would you like to be a part of this? And over the course of maybe 3 or 4 days, everyone reached out to me. And so it went from like an idea to I had the four people that I wanted at the conference. Like it happened really fast.
I mean, that's almost down to like put the fleece out and see if if it's wet kind of stuff there. I mean, that's crazy. So
It was literally cold calls. And then everyone called me. I mean, each one has their own, they have people that work with them and stuff, but each organization reached out to me, and
wow.
each person, we told me what I got to pay for the flights and all that. And they gave me like the parameters. Okay, cool, cool. That's great. That's great. And then there was a little bit of a few days of juggling around dates, and then it was locked in.
Well, that's the other thing that's got to be tough. I mean, those guys all have other things that they're doing, other engagements. For the
Mm-hmm.
date to come together like that, that's awesome. So, for
Yeah.
those who don't know, the speakers that we're talking about, this all-star cast was Eli Ayala. That's Revealed Apologetics, right? Is that what
Yep.
Eli's main
Mm-hmm.
thing is?
Mm-hmm.
We have Jason Lyle, who used to be with Answers in Genesis, has his own a new group now. What's the name of that one? If you don't, I know I just put you
The
on the
Biblical
spot.
Science Institute.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Ross, who is also did an awesome job, and then also the infamous James White. I mean, Doctor
He's been in the
White,
game
Doctor
since the
White.
80s.
I'm sorry, my wife corrected me at the conference. She's like, "Make sure you say Doctor White." I'm like, "You're making me nervous now." See, but you have to understand. So, in our home, we have a 4 year, well, a 4 year old now. That's
Mhm.
Uncle Jimmy. So it was kind of hard. Like
Oh yeah,
I had to
yeah.
balance
He
some of that out.
knows his voice, huh?
Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, so that's awesome how you got them in. And you said they were really influential to you. So, like, um, maybe go through some of them. I know we talked about Jason Lyle a little bit, and I mentioned
Hmm.
Eli, but talk about James White, how you came across him, maybe not just for the conference, but just in his theology in general, and how you followed him
Hmm.
and how he's impacted you.
So I actually found him accidentally, and I don't remember where I first heard him. I couldn't tell you. But once I did hear him, I sought him out. I probably on the radio. That was, 10 years ago. People were still listening to the radio, I think. Um, and I found him or I heard him probably on the radio, but then I found him on sermon audio, and he just spoke so differently. And I understand that a lot of Christians have confidence, but the way he spoke about God and the Christian worldview and how he was able to be consistent and um, again, starting with the sovereignty of God, that led him to one of the things I loved is he never apologized for who God was. He talked about we have to let God be who he is. And it's our duty to love God for who he is, not try to make him who we want to be and those kind of things.
Yeah. So, I am a huge James White fan, and the big part or the big reason why that is I got into him from watching his debates. I
Ah.
think that I have
Hmm.
seen there's over 200 now, right? So, like,
Yeah.
if I've not seen 120 out of the 200, and some of them I don't even think are on like the
Oh
easiest to
yeah, because
watch
he might be from the
platforms.
80s.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I that was the thing that really drew me to him. I loved hearing him debate. Um and that was the thing. So like I learned so much from them. That was a
Hmm.
point where in my life where I started to actually look up the other side. So the people he would debate, I would actually look into them. So I
Hmm.
didn't just go away from the debate going, okay, James White crushed him. That was it. And
Hmm.
this is probably probably the wrong thing to say on a video, but like we actually have a saying in our house that we asked
Yeah.
my 4-year old, who's daddy's favorite heretic? It's Bart Ehrman, and it became Bart Ehrman because of the debate with
Uh-huh.
James White. So, and
Yeah.
that's not me promoting him. That's just
No.
me saying like I've probably read more Bart Ehrman than well, I can't say James White because any debate he
Yeah.
goes into, he's studied it pretty hard. So,
Cool.
uh,
But that's the advantage that we have over secularism is that they don't know the Bible. They don't know how to keep a consistent narrative of God. And then also other worldviews. Like you hear people talk and they say things that are just patently false. And you don't want to be in that situation. You need to know what the other side thinks, and not just so you can not just so you can refute them. You need to understand what they think. When I was learning about Islam, I got just went on YouTube and listened to Islamic preachers preach. Not Christians tell me about Islam. Now, I did do that as well. But when I wanted to learn about Islam, I listened to Muslims preach. When I want to learn about Hinduism, I listen to gurus tell me, right? And so that's important to go listen to the other side.
absolutely. And I want to go back to something you said. You mentioned and I know there's going to be somebody out there watching this going, no, that's not exactly right. But the truth is that a lot of people who have left Christianity, one of the things that I've been studying for the past 2 or 3 years now is really the deconstruction movement. Um,
Yeah.
and
I'll
so,
make a comment about that.
oh boy, here we go. Yeah. So in watching them, when they represent Christianity, it's normally a very watered down, uh, for lack of better terms, uneducated version of it.
Hmm.
And that makes up 70%, 80%. The other 30% were ones that just really never grasped on to the truth that they may even know. I mean, I do know some people who were very knowledgeable about the faith and were taught it, but you could tell it never planted the seed never really sprung up. And so
Yep.
that's why I think knowing the other side is really important. Trying to keep people educated, not just on what the right doctrines are, but honestly how the other ones are wrong or how the other worldviews where their mistakes are at. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You can't just poke holes. You've got to replace it with something.
that's right. Don't
Right.
just poke holes in the bucket. You got to fill up with new
Yeah.
water. Yep.
Mhm. So yeah, that's important. I feel the same way about the deconstruction movement. It's like when I hear him talk, I'm like, it's no wonder you're not a Christian because that's not Christianity.
Yeah, and I mean, what a lot of times, and this is why I think what you guys are doing in Tennessee is so great. And we need to talk about some things. Maybe you need to take this show on the road. Uh, like maybe
I would do that.
once a year, maybe not enough, but we'll talk about that another time. Um, the philosophy that they get a bumper sticker philosophy that they think just annihilates Christianity,
Yeah.
and that's a major problem. And so inside our churches, if we're just going to give you the 3 point sermon and not equip them to actually deal with how philosophy impacts Christianity, and I'm still in agreement with you. It's not like we have to know the every detail of every philosophy
Hmm.
that's out there. Normally they get categorized, and you can kind of work from there. But we've got to understand philosophy and how it works, how scholarship is done.
Yeah.
If you don't understand how scholarship is done and the biases that are involved in it, it's going to be really hard to have a conversation about theology today with someone who isn't already a Christian.
Yep. You have to understand. You hear him talking, like, okay, I get where you're coming from. You're coming from like a progressive Christian. You're coming from the secular worldview. You're coming from whatever it is. And you're like, okay, the things you're saying, you're not saying anything new. You're just saying what you heard someone else say. And so I know this scholar and I know these people and I know their presuppositions, and you're just accepting them. Right. So then I have a framework to talk to you about Christianity,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. So, kind of moving forward, one of the things that I really wanted to commend you guys on, um, to be honest, with my background and having followed all those guys for so long, it wasn't like I walked in and they said something that was earth shattering. I'd been following them forever.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I want to commend you guys on is the people that were there. I know you don't have control over that,
Mm-hmm.
but what a blessing when you guys put that on and allowed that group of people coming from all these different places to come in and fellowship under such a like-mindedness. It was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely huge for Amber and I. And so truly, not just for the knowledge that was, given out,
Mm-hmm.
but for that actual time of fellowship with those people, that was huge. So
Uh,
I don't know if anybody's told you that, but that's really important. And I thought that was a great part of it.
Dude, I appreciate that. That was something that we wanted to do, is connect believers. That's why we didn't
Yep.
stream it, because we wanted it to be in person. And there were people that reached out that were like, "Oh, you should have a contrasting worldview, and if you're really searching for truth, you can have a contrasting worldview." Da da da. That's not what this conference was about. This conference was about building up believers, telling them how they can know that the Christian worldview is true. It wasn't the contrasting Christian worldview conference. And so I'm glad that you picked up on that. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. I wanted to say that obviously there were people there. Almost everyone knew some people, but not all of the people. But one experience I had was when Jason Lau was given his fractal talk.
Mm.
And there were these two young guys in the back. I'm going to say they're around 20. And they were like leaning against the booth where the video cameras were. And like this guy's eyes were just wide open. And, Dr. Lyle's trippy fractal thing is going in the background. That huge screen at the church is so awesome, right? It's like cool. And his eyes are wide open. And I was like, what do you think about that? It's pretty cool. And he looked at me and he was like, I didn't even know about this. I didn't even know about fractals. I was like, you don't know fractals? He was like, no. I was like, dude, he has a book. And the dude literally left and went and bought the book and came right back.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's really
Blew
cool.
his mind, right?
Yeah. So,
So,
you talked about, so I don't know how we segue into this because I did want to get some of your thoughts and maybe to talk about some of the feedback you got from the non non-debate the non-debate at the end of the
yeah, the debate we didn't have.
yeah, the debate that didn't
Yeah.
happen. So what was the feedback you got from that? Did that bring any type of responses that were kind of positive or
Mm-hmm.
negative?
Positive. So, what we're referring to when we say the debate that didn't happen is we had a dialogue between Dr. White and a local guy named Josh Scott, who's a progressive Christian and a pastor of a church that's got progressive theology. And they came in and they just talked. And so it wasn't like a moderated debate with cross-examination stuff. They literally were just asking each other questions and talking. And there was two things. One was there were people, like Christians, that were actually like had to get up and walk away because they had not been exposed to that kind of progressive Christian theology. It's not even really Christian, that kind of progressive theology
There was
that's cloaked in Christianity.
There was a couple Christians had to get up and walk away that had been exposed to it. Just I'm not going to mention Eli's name, but I'm just saying
it's tough. It's
it
tough. But at the end, here's the feedback. Here's the number one feedback I got. Actually, this is the only feedback I got. People were like, it was amazing to see the presuppositional apologetics used in real life at the end. They said the whole 2 days all culminated in that, and we saw what it looked like. And they were encouraged. They're like, oh, okay, I get it now. So that was encouraging to me.
It really couldn't have wrapped up any better. Now, just to paint the picture for those who aren't there. So first of all, we're from Akron, Ohio. So go Cavs. So we literally got up Friday morning and left at like 8, drove all the way there. It's about 8 hours. The first night goes till what? We didn't get out of there till what, 9?
9.
Yeah. We get up the next morning. We're there at 7:15, and we go back to back to back to back. Lunch break.
We packed it, didn't we?
To back. And then we get to what you're talking about, and some people had to bounce, but Amber and I, no. Once you told me that that conversation was happening, we were there. But you're tired, and I told my wife, who is like, man, I'm pretty exhausted. I mean, like, this is a big emotion. This whole trip is a big emotional, thought-provoking experience. I said, I'm gonna tell you right now. I said, as soon as Dr. White gets situated in that chair and makes his first or second remark, I said, your blood's gonna run so fast that you're not gonna have any problem with falling asleep or getting bored. And for an hour and a half, because that's what it was limited to. I mean, I didn't have it. Nothing was on my mind but that conversation. It was awesome. It really was good. And you're right. It was a culmination of everything that had been talked about over the whole week, at least apologetically or philosophically. And who better to close that thing out than him, who had more experience in that.
And you saw firsthand how Mr. Scott's theology didn't allow him to have certainty, right? So he was sort of lost in this epistemic quagmire where he really couldn't nail down exactly what he thought. And he was kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth. And with presuppositional apologetics, we say the Christian worldview is the only worldview that can give you the foundations for knowledge and rational thought and objective morality and induction and laws of logic and all this stuff, right? And you saw that in contrast with this essentially secular worldview. I mean, he calls himself a Christian, but he's got a very secular worldview.
I would probably answer it a little differently, even though in the same vein. The issue was just the simple knowledge base of the Bible that was lacking there. Like there was, now granted, that's formed by your worldview, right? But his lack of true, you could tell he was exactly what I was describing earlier. It was a bumper sticker theology. He heard this guy say this. Now he's resting on that theologian or scholar. And like I said, after having been studying deconstruction for the past two plus years, I could just recognize, I'm like, yeah, he got that from this guy. Yeah, he got that from that guy. And James White's knowledge base was just basically like up here. And so, but Christians need to see that, they need to see how knowing the Bible can actually answer questions that they're getting every day. So that's definitely something I'm trying to work on helping with as well through our ministry. So yeah,
I agree. Stand on the word of God, trust it, believe it, and you'll be just fine.
So why don't you tell us, I know we're running, low on time here and you've been so gracious. Why don't you tell us about next year? Cause there's already plans for next year. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're looking at, the dates aren't finalized, but it'll be end of September. It'll be in September. I'm just waiting on the finalization from the church, but for all intents and purposes, will be end of September. And we've got guests. I'm not going to say who the guests are yet because I got to get final like confirmations. But let me just say,
now hold on. I gotta ask this.
We're gonna crush it.
Okay, so maybe you come back on when you announce it.
Oh, 100%. I'll announce it here.
There we go.
I'll announce it here.
All right.
So 2026 is going to be about contrasting the Christian worldview with other world religions. So teach it presuppositional apologetics again. You got to get your mind right first. We're going to teach you about Islam. We're going to show you apologetics in action, and then we're going to review it together. That's going to be the flow of the day. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. I really can't wait. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's really cool. And I'm excited to hear who the speakers are, especially after what you guys pulled off this last year. So
here's what I'll say real quick.
Okay.
The speakers are like, yeah, man, let me make sure that my dates work. That's how I'll say it. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
I'm not going to pry. I'll wait patiently.
Yep.
You know, like
I don't want to speak too soon.
Yeah.
Right. Then they'll all back out.
I was about to say, you don't believe in luck. So I know that you're not jinxing yourself, but
no.
So also we had one more speaker that we didn't get into yet, which that was Dr. Marcus Ross, who Amber and I just really enjoyed him. We thought it was going to be basically the normal spiel, and really thought that he came up with a way different approach to discussing young Earth creationism. Why don't you talk about him?
I love Dr. Ross. He's awesome. So he's a paleontologist and a geoscientist. He did some kind of graduate work on mosasaurs. You'll see him in different documentaries and stuff. Like he's definitely has an online presence, and he owns Cornerstone Educational Supply. So if you need, educate or science-based educational materials, they provide them. But yeah, so he can do all of the typical science stuff. But the cool thing he talked about infinite game thinking, right? Which is, don't get stuck in trying to win the individual evidence battles with an evolutionist. What you need to learn to do is understand the world through a Christian lens, right? So that you're playing the infinite game, right? And you're not just caught in little battles. I thought that was great. And then he did a talk about the historical atom and how important that is.
Yep.
So yeah,
he
was awesome.
I actually bought the book that he was in on the atom. Yeah.
Have you read it yet?
I have not.
Dude,
you're
going to get
stack of books is a little tall right now, but
yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah. Dude. Well, listen, Aaron, thank you so much for being on this show.
No problem, man.
And just behind the scenes, just so everyone knows, we had about 45 minutes out of our time together that was complete tech work. So thank you so much for being patient with that. Definitely want to have you on again. Is there anything you want to plug, any type of websites or where to follow you, or the Tennessee Fellowship?
Yeah, so the Tennessee Fellowship for Christian Apologetics is at tennesseeapologetics.org. And then I have also a personal project I'm working on called Captive Thought Apologetics. And so you can find me at, I have a website, captivethought.com, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing happening on there. I'm building that in the back end. But you can find me at captive.thought everywhere. Captive.thought on YouTube, captive.thought on Instagram, on TikTok. And so I'm just trying to get online and do apologetics. The thing I'm doing right now is getting on TikTok with my microphone and talking to people. So eventually I want them coming to me, but what I'm doing right now is going out and just talking to people.
Yeah.
So.
I had to call you the other night and tell you to get on TikTok for me.
Yeah. I'm excited, dude. If you want like a partner in crime with this Dan McClellan thing, I would love it. Because I understand what you're saying. People listen to him, and he's just not the person to listen to. He's not.
He's not. You're not going to hear any promotion of him from this group here tonight. So yeah. No. So thank you again, Aaron. I really appreciate it. So everyone, that's our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, stay shaped by reason, guided by faith, and grounded in Christ. Take it easy.